The topic of my discussion today is apoptosis. Apoptosis is a natural process by which cells whose functions are no longer required are selectively killed by the body itself. So this process, that is why this process is also called as programmed cell death. So programmed cell death means it is a very well organized process. So this apoptosis is a very well organized process by which cells whose functions are no longer required are selectively killed. So this is what apoptosis is. Apoptosis is carried out by a class of enzymes called caspases. So enzymes are protein in nature, and these enzymes that carries out apoptosis are called caspases. So caspases are proteases that carries out apoptosis. Caspases are cysteine proteases. Cysteine is an amino acid, and this amino acid is present in their active site. So enzymes have active sites, and this active site contains cysteine residues. That is why this enzyme is known as cysteine protease, because it contains cysteine in the active site. These caspase enzymes are cysteine protease, and they cleaves the targets. Target is a protein. Because it is protease, that means it cleaves some proteins. How these caspases recognize the target protein? So they recognize the target by the presence of an aspartate residue in the target site. So it will cleave, the caspase will cleave just beside the aspartate residue. So aspartate is another amino acid. So the presence of aspartate amino acid in the target is essential for the cleavage of this caspase enzyme. So this C stands for cysteine, ASP stands for aspartate. So these caspases are cysteine proteases that cleaves the target in the site where aspartate is present. So it cleaves just beside the aspartate residue. This is the criteria for cleavage by a caspase enzyme. The apoptosis pathway begins with the activation of caspase from the inactivated form. Caspases are basically kept inactivated when apoptosis is not required. So this inactivated form of the caspase is called procaspase. It is inactivated caspase. This is the form in which the caspases are present when apoptosis is not occurring. Conversion of this inactivated form of caspase into the active form is essential for the beginning of apoptosis pathway. The procaspase is first converted into caspase, and it is the active form. So this caspase will carry out the next reactions. A series of reaction happens, a cascade of reaction happens, and the end product of these reactions, the end product of all these reactions is target cell death. So this apoptosis pathway begins with the conversion of procaspase into caspase, which is the active form, and the following reaction happens. What happens in the following reactions? In these reactions, what happens? The main thing that happens is proteolysis. So this procaspase is converted into caspase by proteolysis. And the same thing happens in these reactions also. So various proteins are activated by the proteolytic event. So these caspase will activate other caspases by proteolysis. Various proteins will be activated by proteolysis, and the end result of all this is target cell death. So what happens from the beginning? Procaspase is converted into activated caspase by proteolysis. Proteolysis plays a very important role in the apoptotic pathway, because if proteolysis do not happen, then procaspase will not be converted into active form, and the apoptosis pathway will be blocked. So this conversion of procaspase to caspase is very much essential for the initiation of apoptosis. So once activated caspase is formed, the next reactions will happen, the next steps will happen, and the net result is target cell death. So this is the main thing about the apoptosis process. Caspases are classified under two categories: initiator caspase and effector or executioner caspases. What are initiator caspases? The first caspase that is activated in the pathway is the initiator caspase, because activation of that caspase is turned on the pathway. So that caspase is called the initiator caspase. and the effector caspases are those which are activated next. All the caspases that are activated by the initiator caspase itself or by other effector caspases are called effector caspases. So except the first caspase that is activated, all the other caspases are effector or executioner caspases. So this initiator caspase turns on the pathway and the effector caspases actually performs the proteolytic function, and these caspases carries out the target cell death. So these are the two categories of caspases.